All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Matias De Stefano here with me on the show. And Matthias is a multidimensional perceiver who has kept his pre-birth memories active his entire life, and he continues to access them to help mankind understand our identity, our origins, our destiny. Super excited to have you here, Matthias. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, this is gonna be a good one. I've been looking forward to chatting with you for some time, and I'm gonna start you off with my cliche opening question, which is this: You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
The passion. Oh my gosh.
I
um,
already stumped you. It didn't take any time. The man who
that's
remembers
a bad
everything is
beginning.
stumped.
um, my passion uh, is discovering the patterns in the world.
Yeah,
Discovering, yeah,
yeah, I like that. I
getting
like that.
surprised because of the patterns. Yeah,
Yeah. That's a good passion. Cool. Well, if you would, for those who don't know about your backstory, haven't seen your show on Gaia, and heard the fascinating life experience that you've had, could you just share whatever feels relevant to share to just kind of set the stage here?
sure. Well, I'm from Argentina, so that's my accent, and I since I was born, I was able to remember everything that I've done before I was born, and I think I was lucky to grow up in a agnostic family, so I had no spiritual or religious environment, and so that allowed me to express my memories into a creative way instead of a religious way, or
Mm,
but it was more about creativity and stories, so that allowed me to play more with it.
yeah.
And um so I started to study education to help other kids that were going through the same, through remembering, through feeling other realities and dimensions, and and that took me to some educational congresses, um, and people start to ask me questions, and someone filmed me and put it on YouTube, and suddenly I ended up um, doing talks everywhere in
Wow.
Spanish, and then they invited me to do it in English. So
Yeah.
yeah,
What a
yeah,
trip, man. I mean, you hear a lot of these, you hear quite a few stories of kids remembering at 2 years old, 3 years old, who
yeah,
they were previously, and then it kind of goes away.
yeah,
I mean, you've seen that story a bunch, I'm sure. And your story has always jumped out as pretty unique in the fact that you've continued into adulthood having vivid memories. I mean,
yeah,
do you have vivid memories of not only past lives but of life between lives, sort of like how your
yeah,
higher self is functioning and living out its existence, if you will?
yeah. It was at the beginning was just about other lives, but it was very mixed with other realities that I didn't understand at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like more complex and complex, and suddenly I was remembering things that are not in the past, but
Mm-hmm.
it's in the other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to realize that it was not only about past lives that I was remembering, but I was remembering pieces of the universe
Right.
somehow.
Right.
So yeah, and I would say I was lucky that I was able to have an environment that helped me to talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
and to have fun with it, and
Mm-hmm.
not seeing it as a conflict or a problem.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's what kept me going. My mom used to say to people, well, it's everyone talks about the kids when they speak about other lives, and wow, they're so cool and everything. But once you cross the 14 years old and you keep on going with that,
Yeah.
suddenly it's like, okay, this is schizophrenic.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
you know,
Right.
it has a problem, or how can we deal with it, because it becomes more terrible, and then you become a grown up and you keep on going with the same thing. So I was even worried myself, if it was a problem or not, because the other kids usually stop sharing it. Some of
Yeah.
them keep on going with it but don't share it because they were
Yeah.
afraid.
Right. Right. Right.
um, yeah, but yeah, so it got complicated when I grew up, but it never stopped.
Yeah, I mean, and in your case, it's sort of the opposite. Instead of it winding down, it's continued to expand,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so it's
exactly.
like a little probably unnerving. And I mean, and in some ways, I suppose it had to be. I know for me personally, not having past life recollection, but finding, remembering the ultimate nature of reality and so forth. In my 20s, it was very comforting to like,
Yeah,
okay, this isn't, this lifetime is just a moment in eternity. I'm
exactly.
floating in eternity now. And, there's this, I will continue on and, it's all happening simultaneously, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, as you perceive that way, beyond just rational thinking and feeling, as with me it was like, because it's my dharmic path to do this kind of work, and 10 years of doing this podcast, and it's reached a lot of people and everything, I can think, I always think, well, there's a reason I remembered, and it was so like potent for me.
Yeah.
However, that didn't entail me also having visions of these other lives and existence and things to the degree that you have, which is so, intense and profound. So I guess I'm curious, is there any parts of that? I'm sure there's some parts of it that are very comforting. Is there any parts of it that have been really unsettling to you?
Oh yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
Mo-
yeah.
Most of it,
Yeah.
mainly during the teenagehood, because when imagine that everyone, when you are a teenager, you are trying to find out who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and what what is your role here in the planet or in
Mm-hmm.
your life, with
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to do. And at the same time, you have to deal with that in many lives,
Yeah.
like remembering that you are different people
Yeah.
and that all of them want for you to be something. Um, so it was not easy,
Yeah.
and not only past lives, but also beings from other dimensions that are not not asking you to do something specific, but the expectation for you to do what you're supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
and not only from the light, but also from the darkness,
Right.
uh, and so that was unsettling. That was very uncomfortable because it was about everything.
Yeah.
And one of the goals that I had to do first was to find neutrality in between all of that.
Yeah.
Like, what should I do with all of this? And sometimes it was all about my life, my experience. But when I had to explain this to people, I usually go to neutrality and try to explain everything, not from my own, just my own experience, um, but what is the main information that is needed to be shared from all the things that happened to me. So it doesn't become just an explanation of my own story, but a code that could be useful for everyone in their own stories.
Mm.
So it was a tough process.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, of expansion and trying to understand this in many different ways.
Yeah. 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 It's intense to realize that, you know, the the brighter the light, the greater the shadow it casts, or the higher
Yeah,
the branches, the deeper the roots. The
yeah,
darkness is a part of it, um and to
yeah,
perceive all of that. And then I think of a friend. She has experiences where when she dreams at night, she'll go into other lifetimes, she feels, and will live years of these lifetimes, and then wake up and it's like, oh, okay, I just spent 20 years in another life. And then
yeah,
tonight again and again, and she seems exhausted. Like she has that, she's not like out talking about this openly. You have to pull it out of her.
Yeah.
And so I think there must be some level of that for our higher self, our soul. Like, oh God,
Oh
there's
yeah.
ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. Like, you know,
Yeah. Well, I was a tired kid.
yeah.
Like like sometimes people thought that I was like very old
Hmm.
because what I felt or what I lived is a whole life. And for example, there was once that I was in front of an investor for one
Hmm.
of the trips that I had to do,
Hmm.
and he was like almost 80 years old, and 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 I was supposed to explain him what the project was, about the connection of the planet and what it was supposed to do traveling around the planet. And um and I remember that he made like a joke of like telling me, well, you're too young, you don't know about these things. And
Hmm.
suddenly I became totally different, and I
Hmm.
said, you are only 80 years old. I have been working for this 12,000 years.
Wow.
You don't know how it is to
Uh,
wait and to
yeah.
have to go through this and this and this. And I started to explain all the history and everything that I have done to be able to be here with 24 years old to tell you,
Yeah.
you know. So it
Right.
was it was so it was so old, my
Yeah.
speech in that moment, that he said,
Oh,
I totally get it now. So
okay. Yeah. 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 Like all 12,000 years came together. Like, look, you young
like
80-year-old whippersnapper. Like,
you're too young to know
yeah.
what
Right.
what
Right.
it means to be
Right.
12,000 years working for this.
Right. What a trip. That's awesome. That's awesome that it had such a it landed with him too, because I mean it would make sense if all of a sudden all of that part of yourself is coming through, it's got to be felt, on his
Yeah,
end. Obviously, it sounds like it was.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Very cool.
but one of the main things that I had to learn was also to live like a kid,
Mm,
not uh to remember all these things and to be connected to the everything. Doesn't give you the uh, as much connected you are to everything, uh the less hierarchy you feel. Like it's
mm,
not like, uh oh, I know all this and now
yeah.
I'm no, it you start to feel like a child,
Right.
and suddenly it's like everything surprises you.
Right.
And some
Wow.
people say to me, how is possible that you still get surprised with
Yeah.
these kind of things?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like, because it's fun.
Yeah.
and
Right.
and uh, and with the pass of time, when I was younger, I was like an old guy, worried about, uh I have to accomplish my mission, otherwise I have to repeat it all again. And as I grew up and I became older, I'm more like a kid,
Mm,
saying, oh, let's have fun with this. So the more I remember and the closer I got to the origin of everything, um, I started to allow myself not to think,
mm-hmm.
and but to have fun with it. So
Cool.
yeah, so most of the time I have my mind in blank, and allow myself to surprise what is coming. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and being like, lest you become like a child, and that is, that childlike wonder is so powerful. And I totally feel you. It's like for me, I get giddy like a kid around. I have a friend who he always jokingly, when he sees me, is like Mr. Synchronicity, because I always have
yeah,
these synchronicity stories,
yeah,
and I have so much of that sort of stuff that happens to me, and it never gets old. It
yeah,
never, and I think that's part of what really attracts it too. Would you agree with
totally,
that?
yeah.
It's like being in that state calls it in.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why a lot of people resounded with what I say, uh, is because, um, I'm not preaching it. I am having fun with it,
Yeah.
and and that, I think it's more relaxing, because it's not that you are supposed to be in one way, or you're supposed to do this to accomplish a mission, or these kind of things. It's more about play with it and have fun with
Hmm.
it, and everything will play along. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and that is much more relaxing for a lot of people to resound with, with this. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, think just the word enlightenment, right? Lighten up. I mean, get
yeah,
more light. And
exactly. Yeah,
I think that's all you can do. I mean, when you look at the intensity of eternity, it's like it can be so overwhelming, especially in your shoes. Like, what else to do other than to bring levity to it,
yeah,
right?
yeah. When I started to connect to the everything and remembering so many things from the point of view of my ego, um, I was I had these two conflicts within me. It's like I am nothing. Why I'm seeing
Hmm.
this? So it's overwhelming. And the
Yeah.
other thing is I'm the chosen one.
Yeah. Right.
So and both are incorrect
Mm,
because one both of them brings you a lot of responsibility and a
yeah.
lot of weight, and you start to kind of suffer the connection and the feeling of the everything. And
Mm,
for years, I thought that I was not good enough for what I was supposed to be done, for what it was supposed to be done. That I felt that I didn't worth it, um, or I felt that if I don't do this, nothing will happen. You know,
yeah.
so it was I was very overwhelmed and very worried and very desperate on this must be done.
Mm,
And as I grew up and I was one step closer to the origin, one step closer to the origin, more and more and more connected to the source of everything. Suddenly, instead of being more overwhelmed, I started to be more relaxed. Like
hmm.
I don't care. Now I don't care about if people understands what I'm saying, if they believe what I'm saying, if I'm accomplishing or not my purpose. What I'm concerned about is just to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
since that happened, since I go back to the source and then enjoy the source, um, uh, so many crazy things are happening, even bigger and greater, uh,
Wow.
involving so many people around the planet, and I'm not
Hmm.
even doing any effort for that to
Yeah.
happen. I'm just
Yeah.
enjoying it. So I
Right.
think that's that's a way that you can kind of start to understand if you are connected to yourself, to your higher self, when you
Mm.
start to enjoy and to allow yourself to be surprised and to um and yeah, to create your own
Relax.
reality. Yeah.
Relax into it. You know, my initials are BBB, and I feel like that was very encoded because I can be such a doer. Like,
Mhm.
you know, do, and it's like, no, get into that relaxed, receptive state. It's like no matter how much doing, how much striving, you're going to be equal distance from an ultimate goal as you
Yeah,
ever were because it's infinite in all directions. So, you
exactly.
know, relax and enjoy the ride to some degree. Learn to be in the moment. And I feel like for me, that's been a big part of my own journey is getting that. And it
Yeah,
sounds like for you too.
yeah, totally.
I'm curious if you have, you know, as you perceive your own, you know, multidimensional self so clearly, do you have that same ability for others? Like when you're talking to others, like, you know, I don't know if I've ever heard that about you. Whether or not like you're having psychic perceptions of someone you're talking to, like me, or
Hmm.
you know, someone in your field, and like, oh, you're instantly aware of your past life, you know, parallel life connections. And I'm curious if
Yeah,
that is present for you as well.
I used to when I was younger,
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
but it was very conflicted for me
Yeah.
because I couldn't relate in here and now, and I was afraid of
Yeah.
touching anyone. Like, uh,
Mm.
like I wouldn't hug anybody. I wouldn't like because I was afraid of feeling everything that was happening within. And
Wow.
sometimes with some people, I would see like the echoes of all the people that they used to be.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
so so it was very difficult to relate to people. So I barely
Yeah.
spoke to people. I was afraid of people. I was afraid of going out. when my friends started to go out, like when we were 17 and we were supposed to, I don't know, go dancing or these kind of things. When I went with them, I could see the different faces of all the people and
Wow.
low beings and demons walking around, and so it was so much that that eventually I learned to close it, because
Yeah.
I knew that that was not my mission to see
Mm-hmm.
that. It was just because I was too open.
Mm-hmm.
It was not my purpose. So
Yeah.
now it can happen, but in specific moments,
Yeah.
that it's meant to be, not
Yeah.
because, yeah, to the
It's
one.
not like the floodgates are open and you're just perceiving all these things that are actually
Yeah,
not beneficial. It's more of an
yeah,
intentional beneficial thing for you.
yeah, hmm,
Got it.
yeah,
Got it. Well,
yeah,
I'm really curious about your book, Conversations Between I and Am. And I know it's just been released. Congratulations on that. And I haven't had a chance to check it out, but I'm extremely curious about it because, well, I know you're a Leo, and
yeah.
it's focused on Leo to some degree, from my
Well,
understanding.
it begins there.
It begins there.
Actually it's 12 books.
That's what I assumed. I assumed,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's for me. My birthday is July 28th, and it's a big synchronicity for me. It's my dad's birthday. It's my great grandmother's birthday. Her mother died that day. I had a
Uh,
girlfriend whose boyfriend committed suicide on that day. His name is Anson, and all my relatives are from Anson, North Carolina, with that birthday. And there's like 10
so
more
that
minutes
day
to
it's
it. It just I mean, that's
like a
like
loop.
just a small piece of it. And both my parents are Leos. My last two partners are Leos. Like it's like so. As soon as I saw this book, I'm like, oh, I'm so looking forward to checking it out. And so yeah, I'd love to just hear. Did you? Why did you begin with Leo? And of course,
Hmm.
let's talk about whatever to share for relating to the book.
Yeah. Well, that year I was supposed to start a trip around the planet,
Mm-hmm.
um, going to at least 12, uh, well, actually more places, like 36 places in the planet, to connect um, the the different visions of the 12 faces of the world. So
Mm-hmm.
I was already booking all the boats to take me to the specific nodes, everything, and I went to Egypt to prepare myself to say, okay, I have to do this. I have to start soon in 2020. So what should I do? And for that trip, and the messages inside the pyramid were, uh, send everyone home and sit down to meditate. I was like,
Mm.
but I was just
Very
connecting with
different
our
than of
planet.
traveling.
Yeah, I have to. I was supposed to go and travel around the world, like I was receiving, and it said plans have changed. We have to do it faster. And how it's faster? Sit and meditate. The world will be sent to meditate. And
Wow.
and I said, how? Well, how can we send everyone to meditate? And
Yeah.
and the voice said, a virus will save the world. And
Wow.
and and 2 months after that, COVID hit,
Wow.
and everyone was locked down. So it was like
Yeah.
send everyone home to meditate. So
Yeah.
so 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 in that moment, I decided, okay, if I have to go everywhere in the world, how can I do it? Well, I have to go inside the machine that can take you everywhere in the world, which is the Great Pyramid.
Mm,
So,
right.
so I went to Egypt, and it was July, and they told me your path begins the day when the star of Sirius appears back in the horizon, and that's the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
new year, and that is the first week of August. So
Mm-hmm.
in Egypt, because other parts of the
Mm-hmm.
planet is different, but in Egypt, in the Great Pyramid, it's the first week of August. So so what they explain me there in the pyramid is there are 360 degrees in a sphere. So it's 360 days plus 5 days out of time. So we
Mm,
begin with the days out of time, and then we start 360 degrees of the being, until we complete the cycle. So I had to
Wow.
be 370 days in Egypt, going inside the Great Pyramid every day, and
Wow.
I had no idea why. So,
Wow.
um, so what I did was I went the first day, I sat down, and I said, "And now what?" So the first thing that came was this inner voice of my higher self saying, "You have come here to ask me," and we started a conversation between my ego, I,
Mm-hmm.
and my higher self, Am. And in that
Mm-hmm.
conversations, he started to explain me everything that I was supposed to do to for those meditations. So I came back to the hotel, which it was only me in the entire hotel for 3 months. Uh, so
Wow.
and the pyramids too. I was the only tourist in the pyramids because of COVID. So
Wow.
so the whole Giza plateau was just for me, and
That's
and
wild.
that was
Did
wild. Yeah.
were and they you didn't have any issue with them allowing you in or anything like that?
No, no, I was the only one. I got a whole year pass. So I had only one ticket, like multi-pass from
Apparently it was
the
meant
fifth
to be.
element. Yeah, so it was my
Wow, that's
multi-pass
wild.
to every temple, and
Wow.
I went every morning inside the Great Pyramid. I came back, I wrote the conversation that I had inside the pyramid, and every afternoon I explain it in Spanish and English in live streamings. So
Wow.
so I thought I would do that just for a month, but it turned out to be 370 days. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the conversations became 12 books. And uh, and so the first one that I wrote was during the constellation of Leo. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why the first one is the aspect
Mm-hmm.
of Leo, of the aspect of the self related to Leo, which is I can. So,
Mm-hmm.
so each one of the aspects are going to be answered throughout the entire cycle, beginning when the
Mm-hmm.
star of Sirius rise up in in front of the Great Sphinx. So that's
Wow.
why we start with Leo, because the Great Sphinx is the first one. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
So 11 more books coming.
yeah, yeah. We have published the first three.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
August, September, October,
Uh-huh.
uh, in English and Spanish. And
Wow.
in October, November, we're going to release the other three. And then 3 months after the other three, and so on. So during the whole year, we will have the 12 books. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite the feat. Are they all like stream of consciousness, like the writing? It's like just what was coming through, sort of like channeled
Yeah.
content.
When you read it, you can tell that sometimes I have no idea what I was saying.
Yeah,
So suddenly my own ego says like, what? Like
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
like myself, sometimes I get like surprised of what I'm saying, because the
yeah,
conversation, uh, and I put my life as a uh, as a as a way of showing that I was actually doing an inner process. So there has been days that was terrible, that I wanted to die, that I
wow,
went um, through horrible things. So I had to, and my higher self was very tough at me, like saying, "You don't want to face this. Now you have to face it."
wow,
So you
wow,
can actually go through that, and of course relate to your own process. But I put my own process there as an example of discovering some of this path towards the I am. And
wow,
so yeah, I go through many topics, uh, from the explanation of what a seed is, to the explanation of politics, to the fifth dimension. So it's a
mm,
whole combination of things that you learn: history, architecture, uh, biology, spirituality, all the things combined in this path. So every day it's a different conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
wow. In this first book, or even I guess the ones that are forthcoming, is there anything? that I imagine there's a lot of information there. Is there anything that comes to mind that was sort of shocking or new to you or unexpected that comes to
Well,
mind
there
when I
was
ask that
once,
question?
more than writing, when I was doing the lives. So they
Hmm.
are all on YouTube. You can actually check it,
Hmm.
but uh, uh, have to be patient because I translate every sentence in English and Spanish. So
Wow.
people during that year had to be very patient, or learn
Mm.
one of the two languages. Um, but there was one day that I was explaining something, and suddenly I just stayed a little bit, and different beings came and started to speak to the people during the transmission, and
Wow.
the the funniest one or the craziest one was a druid from Scotland or Ireland. I don't know exactly, but
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
some reason it appeared, and it's very funny because my accent turned Scottish, and he was like laying down, like drinking a beer. So
Wow.
like very relaxed, talking like telling me don't be an idiot. So
Hmm.
it was it was a very funny thing that people didn't know if paying attention or laughing. But and I
Yeah.
think in some of those live streamings crazy things happen, like those channelings in the middle of a conversation that I didn't expect about. So
Wow.
so
Wow.
um so there are a lot of these surprises in the path. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
Um, I'm curious. Have you, having seen some of your story on Gaia as well, where you sort of go around the world, and then your experience at the Vatican was, wow, what a trip that story was, where
yeah.
you were led to the Vatican, and then lightning strikes, and I mean, really, I mean, such an incredible adventure story. Um, I'm curious. Have you been? Well, first off, maybe just for those who haven't heard, I think that's like a fun little story, and I know it's long. If you want to watch the full thing, you can see it on Gaia,
Yeah.
but maybe you can share with people like high level what happened with that Vatican story. And then my
Yeah.
follow up question is anything like that you've been shown like, okay, this is the next thing for you, as well.
Yeah. It's well, the most of the things that I do when I travel around the world, I have no idea exactly why I'm supposed to be there until I am there. So that's why I
Yeah.
move a lot. Like people is like, oh, why are you there? Why are you here? And sometimes it's very confusing because why is Matthias in the Vatican? And the people that has this um, preconceptions of the systems and the people that are in the systems, uh, we tend to be very like to judge a lot, uh,
Yeah.
um, and for
And
me,
assume.
what I see is all systems. So
Hmm.
there's a system that has a code, and you have to access that code to receive something from the system. You have to access the system to receive the code, bring it somewhere else, and so on. And of course, if you are trying to bring consciousness, you cannot attack the system. If you attack
Yeah.
the system will lock. So what you have to
Yeah.
do is be be close to it, and for it to relax and open, so you can actually get the code, the information that you need. And because I
Makes
am
sense.
not against anything or in favor of anything, I'm just a connector.
Yeah.
So I go wherever they ask me to go. So the thing is that um, I've been called to go to Rome to wait for the call of the Vatican. And
Hmm.
I was supposed to be sitting in a specific place to do that. And and I had to cancel many of my conferences that I was doing to earn money to do the trip around Spain and Italy to do all this connection. And they said, no, don't do anything. Just go and sit there and wait for everything. So um, so I went there. I had to cancel everything. I was very pissed actually, because it's like, now how am I supposed to pay this and
Yeah.
to do all these things? So yeah, so the thing is that the first day that I traveled, there comes this lady that she has no idea about what was the purpose of the trip or anything, but she gave me a check with the exact amount of money that I needed to do the whole thing.
Wow.
So my guides told me, "We told you it was already paid. You just have to move." So okay. So, and she didn't know what it was for. She
Wow.
just gave me that, and I was like, "Oh, this is exactly what I needed to do the whole trip." So,
Wow.
um, so I went there and I sat there in front of in one of the um Piazza del Popolo in Rome, and suddenly my phone rang, and it was one of the secretaries of the Pope, and I was like, "Why did you call me?" And I said, "No, you wanted to call me." And I said, "No, I didn't." Like, so it was
Wow.
this weird conversation for a moment, like, what just happened? And it was because
Yeah.
I posted a picture that I was there, and I made the joke, "Here waiting for the call of the Pope."
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Right. Right.
so it was like this funny thing that I posted, and someone in Scotland saw that and share it in and share that um uh in the bus that they were going to Iona Island, and someone in the bus said, "I am a friend of the secretary of the Pope. I can ask him." So that's how he called me. So it was
Wow.
like a whole crazy thing that they invited me to the Vatican to explain what I was trying to do. I explained them. Uh, they they asked me if I was supported by my family, and I said yes. And they said, okay, so you are allowed to come to the Vatican and do your activation. So before all the other cathedrals allowed me to do the activation that I needed, um, the Pope was the first one that allowed me to do that, even if it
Wow.
was not Christian. so, so,
Wow.
so, and only because I went there with the truth, saying, "Listen,
Yeah.
there's these guys from another dimension that are telling me to bring this. It's not against anything. It's just to transform some patterns and and that actually taught me that when you speak the truth, uh, for the good of all and not against someone or something, all the doors are open."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
What a valuable lesson. I mean, because it'd be so tempting to like, oh, I can't tell them about beings from another dimension, guiding me here to do some transformational exercise, you know, at
yeah,
the center most ground zero for the Christian religion.
yeah,
And yet somehow that message was the power of truth, right?
yeah,
Pierced
totally.
and allowed you in. And yeah, the
Yeah.
part where and then you went on with a group to meditate there, correct?
Oh, yeah. It was a whole adventure because it was a beautiful day, and we were just ourselves in St. Peter's Square, and and it was the first activation, and I said, now we have to go to the first church in history, which is the Pantheon. So we have to go there to move the energy of the first church to go to the Vatican after and do the shift, because the Vatican has the shape of a key. It's the key of
Mm,
St. Peter, the key of heaven. So to turn this upside down so we can open a door. So it's like unlocking something to bring something that was under. Um, but for that, we needed the permission of the Pantheon in the beginning. So when we did that, rain started, and it was like so much rain that all was flooded, and it was all over the news there because it was too sudden and unexpected. So everyone went inside. There was no one in the streets, just 300 crazy people
mm,
running in the water, going towards the Vatican with lightnings all around.
wow.
And and when we did the last activation, this huge lightning hits uh, the cupola of the Vatican, and
Wow.
and it made everything vibrates. And so we did the switching, and when that happened, the rays of light came from behind the Vatican, and two rainbows opened at the gates of the Vatican, uh, double rainbow, and it was with all the lightnings around. So it was so
Wow.
powerful that because of what happened, they invited me after to to bring the message or everything that we have been working with to the Pope itself. And the idea was we have to heal something related to uh, a poison that can become medicine. So if we
Mm,
want to transform everything into love, we have to transcend the idea of where love came from. And for example, the word romanticism,
mm,
uh, something romantic, comes from the word Rome,
mm.
because it describes the Roman days where people were happy in the fields. So all
Yeah.
the romances languages, the romantic concept of life, the romance that we talk about, it all comes from Rome. And
Mm-hmm.
in Spain, in Spanish language, uh, if you mirror the word Rome, you have amor, which is love.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's like this code. So it said the poison is Rome, but you can make medicine through it. But
Mm,
if you kill the snake, uh, if you kill the snake, you cannot get the poison. You need the
right.
snake alive in order to
Right.
take the poison to create the medicine. So you need to honor the snake for whatever it's doing. But the thing is that if you only see the poison, or the snake only works because of the poison, you don't take the information like Hermes or Thoth did. So all
Mm,
the hermetic knowledge, all the spiritual knowledge that we have from these high masters, it was all taken because of a snake.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so all these horrible symbolisms that you can find in the Vatican, they can be horrifying, but at the same time, they are the keys to say we hide here something that can heal if
Right.
you use it correctly. So the idea was to try to bring consciousness to that.
Wow. What a wild adventure. And confirmation to
Yeah.
get at the peak of it, lightning hitting. I feel like didn't it make news everywhere too? The
Yeah.
lightning striking I feel like I saw a picture of it, and then years later heard your story about
Yeah.
kind of the why, if you will, and it's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Have you had any visions or guidance on where and what where your travels will take you next?
Well, of course, I have many things that I'm working on. Um, um, of course, one of the main things that that is calling me now is Switzerland, Liechtenstein,
Hmm.
because most of the conflicts that we have through time, and the ripples that we have in time, that every story is telling us to correct, they all started in CERN, in the Hadron Collider. Uh,
Interesting.
so when when the Higgs boson was discovered, but it was
Mm-hmm.
not about its discovery; it's about all the times that they were testing it. It broke the field of
Mm.
time,
Wow.
so it created many ripples in time, which is the
Wow.
reason why some of us remember, and most of the messages are you have to repair this. Something is broken in time, um,
Wow.
and it was all because of that. And Switzerland
All going
represents
back to
the
CERN.
all goes back to the first machines that started to do this breaking,
Wow.
yeah, process. Um, so it's like a broken clock, and it's of course Geneva is the city of clocks and
Mm.
watches. So
Wow. Right.
so
Right.
it's a whole
Very city of
symbolism of,
clock.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to repair time, and Geneva is the key for that. And the
Wow.
balance aspect of it is the Philosopher's Stone, which is a tiny little piece of Switzerland that is not Switzerland, which is
Mm.
Liechtenstein, and means the stone of light or the shiny
Wow.
stone. So it's like the Philosopher's Stone to repair time. So it's space and time, Geneva's
Wow.
time, and Liechtenstein space. So I've been called to go there constantly, and that place is connected to so many other stories around the planet, mainly
Mm.
Sri Lanka and Scotland. Um,
Mm.
uh, that then comes all back to Egypt and something that needs to be repaired in Egypt. So
Wow. Wow.
so it's a very long story, but I'm being called to those places to to harvest information on what is the next step.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting for me because, just seeing like the threads of connectivity. I I've seen a few in this conversation. I live and run a co-living and event space in Los Angeles called the Mystic Manor, and we
Hmm.
do, it's a hub for conscious community. And I was, filming a late night style show here called Optimistic, um, and we, a lot of transformation happens and comes through here. And I was thinking as I was talking to you early on, we had some the Argentinians were here for a while. This crew of Argentinians that lived here at one during one chapter, and they're so creative
Uh-huh.
and epic people. And and then I have now someone from Switzerland that lives here, and I haven't had any past life visions or memories per se myself, but I did have a ex partner who had a full perception of a past life of mine, supposedly in Switzerland. And
Uh-huh.
since telling me about that, I've had all the Swiss stuff. I live with someone from Switzerland now. I looked at my DNA and not knowing like it goes back to a one of the few cities mentioned as a core place in Switzerland in this life,
Yeah.
so it's an interesting it's a place that I really want to go because it's ever since it's come up as a supposed past life vision this ex
Yeah.
partner had of me there. It just come up so many times,
Yeah.
so
Well, so at certain point, we will all be called there for some
mm,
reason, and
yeah.
it's because all our stories and all the echoes of the stories that we are trying to repair is because one ion
Mm,
was missing because of that.
wow. Wow.
Like everything that we are trying to repair, and we say there's something that is broken, there's something that is not fine. It all comes back to just one ion that no one knows where it is, and
Wow.
that relocates everything. And 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 it all started there. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So
What a
eventually,
trip.
we will all be called around that area between Lyon and Austria. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, in the Alps.
What a trip! What a trip!
Yeah,
Well, I know you on a little bit of a time crunch today. Speaking of travels, you have some places to go, um, things to do. So, yeah, this has been an incredible conversation. Would love to circle back some other time again and dive deeper. Um,
sure.
of course, you're off the hook for my story of synchronicity, serendipity, or positive paranormal story. I mean, you shared about the Vatican. I don't know if there's anything else as we sort of wind down here that you care to share that you feel called to get out there.
Well, talking about that story, uh, about that synchronicity, um, since a year ago, well, one of the first memories that that I got, um, it was we do everything for the memory.
Mm,
We 12,000 years ago, when there was a war between the south and north of the Nile, not Egypt,
mm,
but other cultures, I remember that one of the things that we used to scream for or to give power to ourselves, it was the word emesta. And emesta means for the memory,
wow,
for our memory.
wow,
And it comes from the word emet, which is the elephant. And
wow.
so
They have great
so it
memories
said
too.
the god elephant is the one that allows us everyone to remember. So a few
Wow,
years ago, I started to follow the clue of the elephant, and everything was follow the elephant. The elephant will tell you where it is, where to remember. And
Wow.
so where everything was broken, the time's arrow, it's called. Okay, so there's like what Einstein was describing as the arrow of time. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Something that, well, an explanation of how time works. So
Yeah.
the arrow of time was broken, and only the elephant will tell you where it started.
Yeah.
So I started to check on 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 the story of the elephant, and suddenly I went to Switzerland, and uh, and uh, and I arrived to Liechtenstein trying to find out that story of the elephant, and it was too late, and the only thing that was open was a Sri Lankan shop in the middle of Vaduz in
Mm.
Liechtenstein, and all that they have there to sell was elephants, like stone
Wow.
elephant. And it was
Wow.
like, this is so weird. So the elephant.
Wow.
So and I asked why Sri Lanka. So I Google why Sri Lanka and the elephants, and I figure out that a few thousand years ago, um, there were a family of elephants in Sri Lanka and south of India that were sold to Egypt. They were bred in Egypt. They were sold to Morocco, and then they were bought by Hannibal, the emperor of Spain at that time, and he used 36 elephants to go and conquer Rome, and he
Wow.
crossed the Alps of France, Italy, and Switzerland with 36 elephants that they died in between the Alps, and the last
Wow.
one died close to the Po, in the river in Italy. So it was like th- that connection. So I said, okay, so what was broken in Switzerland actually takes you to Sri Lanka. So I went to Sri Lanka, and the place where everything was broken actually is the deepest point of gravity in the planet, which is
Wow.
Rama's bridge, and Rama was the one with the arrow. And
Mm.
so when I went there, all this information was about, whatever happened in Switzerland in the 80s broke the bridge between Sri Lanka and India. And
Mm.
it's not a physical bridge, it's actually a heaven earth bridge that connects all the avatars and everything. So when that was broken, it's like all the atoms reorganized in a different way, so we got disconnected from the avatar realm. And
Wow.
that's why we are trapped in time constantly trying to find a way to reconnect with that level, because the
Wow.
bridge was there. so, so,
Wow.
so I've never been connected to India before in that way, uh, but it's all related to what happened in Geneva. So,
Wow.
so that's one of the synchronicities that from Switzerland took me to India. So
Wow.
I, I
Wow.
ran to India to unlock that, and many more things unwrapped from there. Um, so it's a whole adventure of telling a story, uh,
Yeah.
to repair time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, your life is quite the story, my friend, and it is fascinating to get tidbits and hear about it as you journey. And um, yeah, what for those who want to continue to follow you and your work, and what comes up and through you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, through Instagram for sure.
Hmm.
Following my Instagram, or um, the website yosoy.red.
What
Um,
is it?
yosoy.red.
Mm.
Yosoy, it's I am in Spanish, and red
Y O
means
S O
network.
Y.
Huh?
Yosoy.
Yosoy. Yes.
Mm.
Dot red, like the color, but in
Okay.
Spanish means network. Yeah. So
Got it.
there you can find links to everything. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I do have one final question for you. It
Mhm.
is my cliche closing question, and it is this: in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Matthias De Stefano?
The meaning of life is a constant discovery of the potential of the universal mind. It doesn't have a specific goal. It has the purpose of discovering the potentialities of the mind.
Yeah. Beautifully said, my friend. Well, this has been such an honor. So awesome to connect with you. Hopefully we can do it again sometime in the future. And
Sure.
and I thank all of you out there for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts to another episode. Till next time, journey well. I love you so much. I love you so